Mount Everest. Standing at 8,850 meters, the mountain has stirred the imagination and courage of man for centuries. Hundreds have died trying to climb to its summit, and now a city slicker with a borrowed sleeping bag but a lot of heart is about to attempt to trek to its third base camp. This is the Everest Podcast.
And welcome to the first ever episode of the Everest Podcast. This is episode 1, and I am your host, Erick. This first episode of the Everest Podcast will basically be just a quick couple of minutes of me giving you an overview of this podcast. What is this thing? Why am I doing it? Who am I? All that good stuff. And hopefully after listening to this, you'll be interested enough to keep listening and to hopefully join me on what will most likely be one of the greatest adventures of my life, at least. And hopefully you can join me and live a little vicariously through this adventure and have some fun along the way with me. So what is the Everest Podcast? So the Everest Podcast is basically an idea that a few of my friends and I came up with over the past few months as I began to learn more about podcasts, and as I also began to plan a trip to climb Mount Everest. Now, let me be clear, I'm not climbing to the summit of Mount Everest. I actually pretty much hate camping, and I hate hiking, so there was really no way that I was actually going to summit, nor do I have any of the skills that you would actually need to make it to the summit or even close. But I am climbing to Advanced Base Camp 3, which is still pretty damn high. It's higher than every tallest mountain on every continent, with the exception of Asia and South America. So it's pretty high. It's 21,000 feet, or for all those non-Americans out there, I think that's 6,250 meters approximately, but I can double check on that. But it's pretty high, and I thought, well, gosh, if I'm climbing Mount Everest and I'm learning more about podcasts and getting excited about this whole podcasting thing, let me see if I can merge the two. So the whole point of this podcast is to broadcast on a daily basis my journeys. And as I trek from the United States to Mount Everest via Nepal and Tibet, I will bring you along with me, and you can live vicariously through my podcast and experience what I'm experiencing and witness as the high altitude and the thin air slowly kill off my brain cells, and you can see the effects of that. We'll have some fun little bits to see if we can illustrate some of the effects of the high altitude on me. And so that's the point of the podcast. A little bit about me. I am actually not, as I mentioned before, not a hiker or a camper at all. I'm more of a city slicker. So if anything, this will just add even more to the entertainment value of this podcast as you listen to me suffer on this whole trek, living in a tent, freezing, cold, shivering, no appetite because of the altitude. We'll get into all of that later. But basically imagine just throwing a city slicker onto Mount Everest and then seeing what happens. That's basically what this podcast is going to be all about. And that's my background, and hopefully you'll be entertained. So just one last little thing about this podcast for this first episode, and that's just the format of this podcast. What I will do is, after this introductory episode, provide one or two more episodes leading up to my actual departure. So these episodes will talk a little bit about the planning and the preparation going into this whole trek. And then afterwards, starting from day one of the actual trek, I will start broadcasting on a daily basis. What I will be using is a Creative Zen Micro MP3 player that comes with a voice recorder. That is actually what I'm recording on now, so I might as well just get started and be consistent. So this tiny little portable MP3 player / voice recorder will be what I'll be bringing up Mount Everest with me, and I'll be using it to record my podcast every day. So Once I get back, I'll upload them all series by series, episode by episode, so you can join with me day by day, and hopefully enjoy the travels as much or as little as I did. So thanks again for listening, and hopefully you are sufficiently piqued now with your interest as to this podcast. It will definitely be a lot of fun, and I'm glad that you'll be joining me on my adventure. So stay tuned, and look forward to talking with you all very soon.
For more information on Erick's Everest trek, as well as photos from his trip, please visit his website at www.everestpodcast.com.